My name is Cheryl and I am a 32-year-old single mother living in Boston with my beautiful daughter Lily. I built a tech company from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Yet, my family still sees me as their greatest shame. At my parents' 40th anniversary party, my father publicly called me the family disgrace and ordered me to leave. I simply said fine and walked out with dignity. What they never realized was that they had been secretly living off my $10 million fortune for years. If you have ever dealt with family members who only valued you for what you could provide, drop a comment below letting me know where you are watching from, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors who turned pain into power. I grew up in a seemingly perfect middle-class family in suburban Massachusetts. Our white colonial house with blue shutters looked like something from a magazine spread about the American dream. My father James worked as a bank manager and my mother Margaret was a part-time elementary school teacher who prioritized being home when my younger brother Thomas and I returned from school. From the outside, everything appeared idyllic. Inside those walls, however, lived a family with rigid expectations and conditional love. My parents valued tradition, appearances, and following their specific vision of success. Dad ruled our household with an iron will disguised as fatherly guidance. Mom never contradicted him, preferring peace over confrontation. She would give me sympathetic looks when he criticized my choices, but never actually stood up for me. School came naturally to me. I excelled in math and science, earning straight A's while participating in chess club and computer programming competitions. By junior high, I was writing simple software programs that impressed my teachers. My parents celebrated my academic achievements, but always with qualifiers. If only you would put that much effort into your appearance. My mother would sigh when I received academic awards. Computers are fine for now, but you need to focus on finding a suitable husband in college, my father would remind me regularly. Meanwhile, my younger brother Thomas struggled academically, but excelled at football and making friends. He was charming, conventionally attractive, and embodied everything my parents valued. When he barely passed classes, they hired tutors. When he got into trouble for pranks, they called it boys being boys. The double standard was impossible to miss. Thomas is carrying on the family name, Dad would say whenever I pointed out the unfairness. His path is different from yours. Despite their clear favoritism, I persisted in following my passion for technology. I earned a full scholarship to MIT, making my parents reluctantly proud. They boasted to their friends about my academic achievements while privately urging me to join sororities and meet suitable young men. During my sophomore year, I met Jack Williamson in an advanced computer science class. He was brilliant, charismatic, and shared my vision of how technology could transform industries. For the first time, I felt truly understood. Our relationship progressed quickly, built on shared dreams and intellectual connection. When I brought Jack home during winter break, my parents were immediately cold toward him. His creative approach to life, artist parents, and lack of interest in traditional finance careers made him unsuitable in their eyes. He has no prospects, my father declared after Jack left. You can do better. I ignored their disapproval, diving deeper into my relationship with Jack while simultaneously excelling in my studies. We spent endless nights coding together, developing ideas that seemed revolutionary. By senior year, we were inseparable and making plans for a startup after graduation. Then I discovered I was pregnant. The birth control had failed and suddenly our carefully planned future was thrown into chaos. Jack's initial shock transformed into panic and finally abandonment. His final words still ring in my ears. I can't be a father right now. My career is just starting. You should take care of this situation. When I told my parents, their reaction was explosive. They demanded I marry Jack immediately. When I explained he had left, they pivoted to their backup position, adoption. You will not throw away your future for this mistake, my father said. His voice deadly calm. There are nice families who can give this child what you cannot. Think of your reputation, my mother added. A single mother. You will never find a proper husband after that. Their certainty that I would fail as a single mother only strengthened my resolve. I had always followed their rules, sought their approval, and tried to balance my dreams with their expectations. But this was different. This was my child. I made my decision. I am keeping this baby, I told them firmly. With or without your support, my father's face turned scarlet. Then you are no longer our daughter. Get your things and get out. My mother cried, but said nothing. To stop him. Thomas looked uncomfortable but remained silent. Within an hour, I was packing my belongings into my used Honda Civic, pregnant and alone at 22. I moved into a tiny studio apartment near campus, took extra programming jobs, and arranged my final semester to accommodate my pregnancy. Against all odds, I gave birth to Lily in May, and graduated with honors 2 weeks later, carrying my newborn daughter across the stage as I accepted my diploma. No one from my family attended. The first year after graduation was the hardest of my life. I found an entry-level programming job at a small software company that offered flexible hours and basic health insurance. The pay barely covered rent, child care and necessities. But it was a start. Every morning, I would drop Lily at a home daycare run by an elderly woman named Mrs. Garcia, who charged less than the commercial centers, and treated Lily like her own grandchild. After work, I would rush to pick up Lily, feed, and bathe her, and then spend precious moments playing and reading to her before her bedtime. Once she fell asleep, my second workday began. Between 9 at night and 2:00 in the morning, I worked on developing my own app, fueled by coffee and determination. The idea had come to me during pregnancy. I noticed how fragmented healthcare information was for expectant mothers with data scattered across various platforms and providers. My app, initially called Mom Connect, would integrate all aspects of maternal and child health care, allowing secure information sharing between patients and multiple providers. By day, I wrote code for enterprise software. By night, I built my dream line by line while my baby daughter slept beside me. When exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me, I would look at Lily and find renewed purpose. She deserved more than a life of constant struggle. After 6 months of development, I had a working prototype. I began approaching investors confident in my product, but unprepared for their dismissive attitudes. One venture capitalist actually laughed when I mentioned being a single mother. How can you possibly run a startup and raise a child alone? He asked, not bothering to hide his skepticism. Come back when you have a co-founder with business experience, preferably male. Rejection. After rejection piled up, my savings dwindled. I was about to give up when I met Linda Saunders, a former healthcare executive turned investor who specialized in medical technology. Unlike other investors, she focused entirely on my product, asking insightful questions about functionality and scalability. At the end of our meeting, she asked to see my daughter. "Bring her to our next meeting," Linda said. "I want to meet the inspiration behind this innovation." 2 weeks later, with 18-month-old Lily babbling in her lap, Linda offered me $500,000 in seed funding for 30% equity in my company, which I had renamed NextGen Tech. It was a tough deal, but it came with mentorship and connections that proved invaluable. With funding secured, I hired 2 developers and a healthcare consultant. We refined the product, secured partnerships with 3 local hospitals for beta testing, and launched 6 months later. The response exceeded our wildest expectations. Within a year, we were in 30 hospitals across New England. By the time Lily turned 5, NextGen Tech had expanded to include comprehensive healthcare management systems for patients with chronic conditions. Our revenue hit 8 figures. We received acquisition offers from major tech companies that I consistently declined. This was my creation, and I wanted to guide its growth. At 27, I bought my first real home, a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a good school district with a yard where Lily could play. After years of renting small apartments, having a permanent home felt surreal. I remembered how I had once feared I would never provide stability for my daughter. Lily grew into a bright, compassionate child who inherited my love of learning and problem solving. She also developed a natural empathy that amazed me. Always concerned about others' feelings and quick to offer comfort. We built a life filled with love, books, adventures to museums, and weekend science experiments in our kitchen. When Lily was 5, she began asking questions about my parents. Where were her grandparents? Why did she only have Mrs. Garcia as a grandmother figure? I had never spoken negatively about my family, but I had also never reached out to them. Their rejection had cut too deeply. It was Lily who inspired me to try again. "Maybe they miss you, but don't know how to say sorry," she suggested with the simple wisdom of a child. I found my parents living in the same house, though it needed repairs and updating. The initial reunion was awkward and tense, with my mother crying and my father maintaining a stiff formality. They seemed shocked by Lily, perhaps because she was tangible proof that I had succeeded without them. They were equally surprised to learn about my company, though they clearly did not understand its significance. Our relationship remained distant but cordial. They would invite us for occasional Sunday dinners, during which my father would critique my parenting choices while my mother fretted about Lily not having a father figure. Thomas, now married with twin boys, would visit with his wife Amanda when we were there, always making subtle comments about my lucky break in business. What none of them knew was that their financial situation had been deteriorating for years. My father had been forced into early retirement during bank restructuring. Thomas had attempted several business ventures, all failures. That drained my parents' savings. His house, cars, and children's private school tuition were far beyond his actual income as a sales manager. It started with small requests. My mother called, asking if I could help with Thomas's son's school tuition just for a semester while he got back on his feet. Then came my father's medical bills not covered by insurance. Then repairs for their aging home. Each time they framed it as a temporary loan. I agreed each time, setting up transfers that they promised to repay when things improved. They never did, and no repayment ever came. I never mentioned the money, viewing it as a way to finally contribute to a family that had given me little emotional support. What they did not know was that I had quietly purchased their mortgage. When the bank was selling off loans, I had created trust funds for Thomas's children. I had paid off my parents' Medical debts entirely rather than just helping as they thought. In total over 7 years, I had provided nearly $10 million to support my family, all without their knowledge of the full extent. I did this not out of obligation, but because I believed families supported each other. Despite our troubled history, I wanted to be the bigger person. I wanted Lily to see that generosity and forgiveness were strengths, not weaknesses. What I failed to see was that my silent support enabled them to continue viewing me as the family charity case, even as they depended entirely on my success. The invitation to my parents' 40th wedding anniversary celebration arrived embossed on cream card stock, clearly expensive. My mother called to follow up, her voice overly cheerful. "We really hope you and Lily can make it," she said, emphasis on really, suggesting surprise that they had included us at all. I felt a surge of hope. Perhaps after 7 years of tentative reconnection, this represented a true turning point. Maybe they were finally ready to fully accept me and Lily into the family. "We would love to come," I replied, already planning our outfits. "Is there anything special you would like as a gift?" My mother hesitated. "Just your presence, dear. Though, if you wanted to contribute to the venue cost, we would not object. These things are so expensive these days." What she did not know was that I had already received a call from the country club manager thanking me for settling the entire event bill in advance. My parents had reserved the venue, but I had arranged to cover all costs without their knowledge. The weekend of the party, Lily and I went shopping for the perfect dresses and gifts. At 10 years old, Lily was excited about her first formal family event. We selected a tasteful silver photo frame with my parents' wedding date engraved alongside their anniversary date, and filled it with a professionally restored version of their original wedding photo. For my mother, we added a delicate diamond bracelet. For my father, a vintage watch similar to one his father had owned. "Do you think they will like me better now?" Lily asked as we wrapped the gifts. Her innocent question breaking my heart. "They do like you, sweetie," I assured her. Though we both knew their interactions with her had always been stiff and formal. They just show it differently than other grandparents. We arrived at the country club at precisely 6:00. The ballroom was beautifully decorated with flowers, twinkling lights, and enlarged family photos on easels throughout the space. I immediately noticed that none of the photos included me past age 18 and none featured Lily at all. My mother greeted us with air kisses. "Cheryl, you look nice." And "Lily, my goodness, you have grown." Her compliments sounded rehearsed, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. My father shook my hand formally and nodded at Lily. "Thank you for coming," he said, as though addressing casual acquaintances rather than family. As more guests arrived, it became clear that we were seated at the furthest table from the main party alongside distant cousins I barely knew. Thomas and Amanda, meanwhile, were prominently placed at the head table with their sons. Throughout the cocktail hour, I caught fragments of conversations about me. "That is James and Margaret's daughter, the one who had the baby in college. I heard she has some computer job. They help her out financially. Such a shame. She was so promising before she threw it all away." I kept a smile fixed on my face, introducing Lily to relatives who seemed surprised she was articulate and well behaved. My Aunt Patricia actually said, she seems quite normal considering." Thomas made his way to our table, champagne glass in hand, little sister slumbing it with the outer circle. "I see." His smile was sharp. "Dad wanted family up front, but there were space constraints. We are fine here, I replied evenly. The centerpieces are lovely. They should be. For what they cost, he said, his eyes narrowing. Speaking of money, Amanda and I are looking at vacation properties in Aspen. Any investment tips from the tech world? Before I could answer, Lily spotted a photo display and walked over to examine it. Mom, she called, confused. Why are there no pictures with you and me? Thomas smirked. Family photos, kid. Real family. I felt heat rise in my face, but maintained my composure. Let us get some air, Lily, I said, leading her toward the terrace. As dinner began, my father rose to give a toast. He spoke eloquently about his 40 years with my mother, their dedication to family values, and their pride in their legacy. He thanked each family member by name for their support and contributions to their lives, from his brother who loaned him money for his first house to Thomas who carried on the family traditions with honor. My name never passed his lips. It was as if I did not exist despite my financial contributions that had literally made this evening possible. After dinner, while guests mingled, Lily asked innocent questions about old family stories mentioned in the speeches. Thomas's wife, Amanda, who had been drinking steadily, laughed sharply. Your mother wouldn't know those stories, sweetie. She checked out of this family when she decided to have you instead of making responsible choices. Her voice carried more than she perhaps intended. Lily's eyes widened. What do you mean? She means I intervened, my voice steady, that I made different choices than what some family members expected. And I have never regretted those choices for a second because they gave me you. Amanda rolled her eyes. Always the martyr. Meanwhile, we all know who really supports this family while you play businesswoman. Something in me snapped. Not in an explosive way, but in the quiet breaking of a dam that had held back years of hurt and resentment. Lily is my daughter, and she is the best decision I ever made, I said clearly. I would appreciate if you kept your opinions about my choices to yourself, especially in front of her. The conversation around us died as my father approached, face flushed with anger or alcohol or both. Are you causing a scene at our anniversary, Cheryl? He demanded. Not at all, I replied. Just setting some boundaries regarding how people speak about my daughter. He glanced dismissively at Lily, who was shrinking against my side. Always about you, isn't it? This night is about your mother and me, about family values and commitment. Values you clearly never understood. Dad, I said quietly. Not here. No, let us be honest for once, he continued, voice rising. You have been the family disgrace since you got yourself pregnant and refused to correct the mistake. We invited you tonight out of courtesy, but you still cannot behave appropriately. The room had gone completely silent. Dozens of eyes watched us. Your illegitimate child does not belong at a celebration of marriage, he continued, gesturing toward Lily, whose eyes were now brimming with tears. I think it is best if you both leave. My mother stood frozen nearby, saying nothing. Thomas watched with poorly concealed satisfaction. Relatives looked embarrassed, but made no move to intervene. In that moment, something crystallized within me. Years of seeking approval, of financially supporting them while accepting emotional scraps in return of hoping they would eventually see Lily's value in mine. All of it suddenly seemed pathetically misguided. I took Lily's hand and stood straight. Fine, I said. Simply. The single word seemed to surprise my father more than any argument would have. He had expected pleading tears or anger. My calm acceptance left him momentarily speechless. I collected our purses and walked with dignity toward the door. Lily's hand firm in mine, her little shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. As we passed the gift table, I left our carefully wrapped presents. Not a single family member called after us or attempted to stop our departure. The silence followed us out into the cool evening air, broken only by the sound of our heels on the pavement and Lily's quiet sniffles. In the car, Lily finally broke down completely, her sobs tearing at my heart. "Why does Grandpa hate me? What did I do wrong?" she asked between hiccuping breaths. I pulled into a scenic overlook and turned to face her fully. "Listen to me, Lily. You have done absolutely nothing wrong. Not one thing. This is about them, not you, not us." "But they are family," she insisted, confusion evident in her tear-stained face. "There are different kinds of family," I explained gently. "There is the family we are born into, and there is the family we choose. Sometimes the people who should love us unconditionally simply cannot or will not. That does not diminish your worth or mine." I told her about Mrs. Garcia, who had become like a grandmother to her. About my assistant, Joyce, who brought her homemade cookies and attended every school play. About my business partner, Linda, who taught her chess and treated her like a beloved niece. "Those people are our chosen family," I explained. "They love us because of who we are, not despite it." As we drove home, Lily's questions continued, each one more insightful and heartbreaking than the last. "If Grandpa thinks I am a mistake, does that mean he wishes I was never born? Does Uncle Thomas not like me because I do not have a dad? Are we poor?" Amanda said, "We pretend to have money." This last question nearly made me laugh despite everything. If only they knew. After getting Lily settled in bed with extra stories and reassurance, I sat in my home office, emotions finally catching up to me. Anger, hurt, and a strange sense of liberation welled within me. For 10 years, I had been trying to earn the approval of people who would never truly accept me or my daughter. Tonight had finally shown me the futility of that effort. My phone rang at 11:30. Displaying my lawyer, David Harrison's number. He rarely called after hours, unless something was urgent. "Cheryl, I apologize for the late call, but something concerning has come up," he began formally. "Our financial audit flagged some unusual activity connected to your family accounts. My company performed regular audits to ensure regulatory compliance. I had established separate accounting for personal finances, especially those involving my family." "What kind of activity?" I asked, suddenly alert. "It appears your brother Thomas has been using property you purchased as collateral for personal loans." "Substantial loans," David explained. "Since you are the actual owner, this constitutes fraud." "That is impossible," I said. "My family does not know I bought those properties." There was an awkward pause. "I believe they do." "No, Cheryl. The documentation shows they have been aware for at least 3 years. There are acknowledgement signatures." What followed was like a surreal detective story unfolding in real time. David connected me with our financial team who had compiled a comprehensive report of all family-related transactions. What they revealed left me stunned. The house my parents lived in, which I thought I had secretly purchased the mortgage for, had been fully transferred to my name 4 years ago with their knowledge. Thomas had been charging rent to tenants in Properties I owned without my knowledge, pocketing the income while I paid the taxes and maintenance. Credit cards I had provided for emergency use showed consistent charges for luxury items, vacations, private clubs, and gambling. Debts. Thomas's son's private school was not being temporarily subsidized, as I had been led to believe I had been paying their full tuition for 5 years. Most shocking of all, Thomas had somehow gained access to a subsidiary account of my company and had been using it to cover personal gambling debts. The forged documentation bore a reasonable facsimile of my signature. How much? I asked numbly. In total, how much have they taken? The financial officer cleared his throat. Based on our complete accounting, including properties, direct transfers, credit card spending, tuition, and unauthorized withdrawals, approximately $9.8 million. Over 7 years. I felt physically ill. Not just because of the money, substantial as it was, I could afford it. What sickened me was the deception. While treating me and my daughter as embarrassing afterthoughts, they had been systematically exploiting my success. Were they ever going to tell me? I asked, already knowing the answer. The documentation we have recovered includes emails between your father and brother discussing how to, quote, keep Cheryl paying without her realizing the extent. End quote. They were quite explicit about never intending to repay anything. I thanked the team, asked them to compile all evidence, and sat in silence. After hanging up, the family that had shamed me for my choices, that had called my daughter illegitimate, that had excluded us from family photos and seated us at the distant table, had been living off my money for years while maintaining the fiction that I was the family burden. The revelation crystallized something in me. This was not just about money. It was about respect, honesty, and consequences. For too long, I had allowed them to take what I offered while giving nothing in return. I had tried to buy their acceptance and they had exploited that vulnerability while continuing to reject me. No more. They had made their choice. Tonight, publicly and unequivocally. Now it was time for me to make mine. Sleep eluded me entirely that night. I sat in my home office surrounded by financial records, property deeds, and email printouts, trying to comprehend the scale of the deception. Every new document revealed another layer of calculated exploitation. Credit card statements showed Thomas and Amanda had taken 3 international vacations in the past year, alone, charging everything to cards linked to my accounts. Property records confirmed. My parents had quietly transferred their home deed to my name when the maintenance became too expensive, while continuing to act as though they were doing me a favor by allowing visits. Most damning were the emails between family members. In one, Thomas wrote to my father, "Cheryl has no idea how much she is actually giving us. As long as we keep the individual requests small and spaced out, she will keep paying without seeing the pattern." My father had responded, "She owes us this much, at least after the embarrassment she caused. Just make sure she never sees the total." By dawn, my shock had hardened into resolve. I called Linda, my business partner and mentor, and explained the situation. She arrived at my home by 7, bringing her personal attorney who specialized in financial fraud. "I am so sorry, Cheryl," Linda said, hugging me tightly. "But I am not entirely surprised. You have been too generous with people who never appreciated it." By 8, we had assembled a team, my corporate lawyers, forensic accountants, financial advisors, and security consultants. The plan took shape with cold efficiency. "First, we freeze everything," advised Martin Chen, my chief financial officer. "All accounts, all properties, all credit cards. Nothing moves without your explicit authorization. I signed the necessary documents officially revoking all financial access from every family member. Credit cards were cancelled, automatic payments stopped, property access codes changed. Next formal documentation, said Sarah Winters, head of legal. We need to establish that these were never gifts, but loans with clear expectation of repayment. Legal notices were drafted detailing every dollar provided with market rate interest retroactively applied. The total with interest came to nearly $12 million. Demand letters for full repayment were prepared along with options for structured payment plans that would essentially require my parents and Thomas to liquidate nearly everything they owned. We should also address the fraud, advised the security consultant. The forged signatures on company documents constitute criminal activity. I hesitated only briefly before nodding. Prepare the police reports. File them if necessary, but hold until I give the word. By midday, we had established a complete tactical approach. Properties would remain in my name with formal lease agreements presented for any family members who wished to continue occupying them. All loans would be officially documented with strict repayment terms. Any further financial support would require transparent accounting and oversight. As we finalized the plans, my phone began buzzing with notifications. It had started. First came a text from Thomas: card declined at restaurant. System error, need you to fix as soon as possible. Then from my mother: ATM says insufficient funds. Is something wrong with the bank? My father called 3 times, leaving increasingly agitated voicemails about accounts being inaccessible. I instructed my assistant to tell any family members who called that I was in meetings all day and would address their concerns that evening. While the team continued working, I took time to talk with Lily. She would inevitably be affected by the family fallout, and I wanted her prepared. Remember how we talked about chosen family versus birth family? I began gently. She nodded, still subdued from the previous night's events. Well, I have discovered that Grandpa and Grandma and Uncle Thomas have not been honest with me about some important things. I need to have a serious conversation with them today. Are they in trouble? She asked perceptively. They made choices that have consequences, I explained. And now they need to take responsibility for those choices. Like when I broke your vase and had to use my allowance to help buy a new one. I smiled at her simple but accurate comparison. Exactly like that, but on a much bigger scale. We arranged for her to have a sleepover at her best friend, Emma's house. Emma's parents, who had become part of our chosen family over years of shared school activities, were happy to have her and understood we were dealing with a family situation. By late afternoon, my phone was ringing constantly. The messages had shifted from confusion to anger. Whatever game you are playing needs to stop now, my father's latest voicemail demanded. Fix the accounts immediately or there will be serious consequences. Thomas was more explicit. What the hell are you doing? We have payments due. Fix this or I am coming over there. I remained calm, reviewing final preparations with my team. Security cameras around my home were checked and enhanced. The legal documents were finalized. Police were notified that we would be serving legal papers that might result in a volatile reaction. At 5:00, exactly 6 hours after being thrown out of the anniversary party, I gave the signal to proceed. 5 members of my legal team departed from my parents' home in 3 cars. 6 police officers in 2 patrol cars and an air unit were dispatched to provide security during the confrontation. I followed 15 minutes later, mentally preparing for the most difficult conversation of my life. The stage was set for a reckoning that had been years in the making. After a decade of silent support and search for approval, I was finally ready to stand in my truth and demand the respect I had earned. Not just for me, but for Lily, who deserved to see her mother claim her dignity. When I arrived at my parents' colonial house, the scene looked like something from a police drama. 2 patrol cars were parked at the curb lights, silently flashing. The police air unit hovered at a distance, monitoring the situation. My lawyer's vehicles lined the driveway. Neighbors peeked from windows and porches, undoubtedly wondering what crime had occurred in their peaceful suburban neighborhood in a way one had, though not the kind they might imagine. Officer Reynolds, the police supervisor, approached my car as I parked across the street. "Miss Thompson, we have secured the premises. Your legal team is inside. The occupants are agitated but compliant. No signs of physical danger. But we will remain present as requested." I thanked him and walked up the familiar path to the front door, the house I had secretly paid for over the past 7 years. The home I had been thrown out of at 22 and again just last night. Inside, the atmosphere crackled with tension. My parents sat rigidly on their sofa, faces pale. Thomas paced by the fireplace, his expression thunderous. His wife, Amanda, perched on an armchair, nervously twisting her diamond wedding ring, the one I later learned had also been purchased using my money. My legal team stood professionally arranged around the room. Sarah Winters, my chief counsel, nodded as I entered. "What is the meaning of this?" my father demanded, immediately rising to his feet. Despite his indignation, I noted the uncertainty in his eyes. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, he did not feel in control. "Cheryl, this is outrageous," Thomas interjected before I could respond. "Bringing police and lawyers to our parents' home. What are you thinking? You need to fix whatever you did to the accounts right now." "Our accounts," my mother corrected quietly. A slip that revealed more than she intended. I remained standing, declining the seat Sarah offered. "I am here because a complete financial audit has revealed some concerning information that we need to discuss." "This is ridiculous," my father blustered. "Whatever accounting error your company made needs to be fixed immediately. We have bills due." "There is no error," I replied calmly. "Every account, credit card, and property connected to this family has been thoroughly documented. What has been revealed is a pattern of systematic financial exploitation spanning 7 years. Thomas stepped forward aggressively. "Are you accusing us of something? Because I suggest you be very careful about making allegations." Officer Reynolds shifted slightly. A subtle reminder of the police presence. Thomas noticed and stepped back. "I am not making allegations," I clarified. "I am stating facts supported by extensive documentation." "Sarah, please distribute the financial summaries." Sarah handed each family member a bound document. The cover simply read Thompson Family Financial Summary 2018 to 20,125. "Please turn to page 3, I instructed. As they did, I watched their faces. My mother gasped audibly. My father's complexion turned ashen. Thomas swore under his breath. The page contained a simple table showing the total financial support provided to each family member over 7 years. Properties, credit cards, Cash transfers, school tuition, medical bills, vacations, gambling debt. Payments, all meticulously categorized and totaled. 9.8 million, I stated flatly. That is the amount you have collectively received from me over 7 years. Money you never acknowledged. Money you never intended to repay. Money you took while simultaneously treating my daughter and me as embarrassments to this family. These numbers are wrong, my father said weakly. But his eyes told a different story. He knew exactly how accurate they were. Turn to page 5, I continued. Here you will find copies of emails between the three of you discussing how to quote keep Cheryl paying without her realizing the extent. There are 27 such exchanges documented. My mother began to cry softly. Thomas looked like he might be ill. Page 12 shows the forged documents used to access company subsidiary accounts. Thomas, those forgeries constitute criminal fraud. The police officers outside are aware of this. Thomas sank into a chair, all bluster. Gone. Cheryl, you have to understand, I was in a difficult position. The debts were overwhelming. What I understand, I replied evenly, is that last night you sat silently while your father called my daughter illegitimate and threw us out of a party I paid for. What I understand is that you have been living in a house I own, driving cars I paid for, and sending your children to schools on my dime, all while treating me as beneath you. I turned to my parents. What I understand is that you transferred your home to my name to avoid maintenance costs, but continued to act as though you were doing me a favor by allowing visits. What I understand is that you have been systematically lying to and exploiting me for years while continuing to reject and shame me publicly. My father seemed to age before my eyes. The powerful patriarch who had dominated my childhood suddenly looked small and defeated. We never asked for that much, he said feebly. Just small helps here and there. That added up to nearly $10 million, I pointed out. While you continued to treat my daughter as if she were illegitimate, while you excluded us from family photos, while you seated us at the furthest table at your anniversary party, the party I paid for entirely. My mother looked up, confusion evident through her tears. You paid for the party. The country club said it was taken care of. I paid for everything. I confirmed. Just as I paid for the roof over your heads, the cars you drive, the vacations you take, the medical procedures you need. I gestured to the documents. Page 20 shows the trust funds I established for Thomas's children. $250,000 each, which they will receive for college. Money none of you knew about because, unlike you, I give without expectation of credit or control. The room fell into stunned silence as they continued reading through the devastating evidence of their deception. And my generosity. Why? My mother finally asked, why would you give us so much while we treated you so poorly? The question struck at the heart of my own confusion over the years. Because I believed that families supported each other unconditionally. Because I thought that eventually, if I gave enough, you might see Lily and me as worthy of your acceptance. I was wrong on both counts. Thomas attempted one last defense. You could afford it. You have more money than you could ever spend. This was never about what I could afford, I replied sharply. This was about respect, honesty, and reciprocity. None of which you showed me or my daughter. I nodded to Sarah, who distributed a second set of documents. These are your options going forward, I explained. The properties will remain in my name with formal lease agreements if you wish to continue occupying them. All past financial support is now documented. As loans with standard interest applied. You have 3 options for repayment. Ranging from immediate full payment to structured plans over 5 or 10 years. My father finally found his voice. This will ruin us. Everything we have would have to be sold to meet these terms. Yes, I acknowledged. Much like you were willing to ruin me at 22 when you threw me out for choosing to keep my baby. The difference is I am offering you options and support through the transition. You offered me nothing. I placed a final document on the coffee table. This is a police report detailing the forgery and fraud committed against my company. I have not filed it yet. That depends on your choices today. Thomas pled visibly. Honestly, I do not want to see my nieces and nephew's father in prison, but I need acknowledgement of what was done and commitment to the repayment plan. My mother reached for my hand, an unprecedented gesture. Cheryl, please. We cannot possibly repay this much. I gently withdrew my hand. You managed to spend it over 7 years. You can find a way to repay it over 10, or you can accept the consequences of your actions as you always taught me to do. The irony of using my father's own frequent lecture against him was not lost on anyone in the room. And Lily, my father, asked quietly, what about our relationship with her? I felt a surge of protective anger. You forfeited any right to a relationship with my daughter when you called her illegitimate and threw her out of your home. If in the future she expresses an interest in knowing you, we can revisit the possibility on her terms, not yours. I stood to leave, signaling the conclusion of our meeting. My legal team will remain to answer questions about the documents and collect your signed acknowledgements. The officers will ensure everything proceeds calmly. As I walked to the door, my father called after me, his voice breaking. Cheryl, wait. I did not know about the money. Not the full extent. I turned back briefly. You chose not to know, Dad. Just like you chose not to know me or your granddaughter. Those choices have consequences. I left them sitting amidst the ruins of their deception, surrounded by the evidence of both my generosity and their exploitation. As I drove away, I felt no triumph, only a profound sense of closure. The family that had rejected me had been living off my success all along. The irony was both painful and liberating. The weeks following the confrontation were emotionally turbulent. I fluctuated between certainty that I had done the right thing and waves of guilt about effectively bankrupting my family. Lily noticed my distraction despite my efforts to shield her from adult concerns. Are you sad about Grandpa and Grandma? She asked one evening as I tucked her in. I am sad about the relationship we did not get to have with them, I answered truthfully. But I am not sad about standing up for what is right. Through Linda's recommendation, I began seeing Dr. Marshall, a therapist specializing in family trauma. Our sessions helped me process the complex grief of losing the family I had tried so hard to please, even though they had never truly accepted me. You were seeking validation from people incapable of giving it. Dr. Marshall observed the money was an attempt to buy what should have been freely given acceptance and love. She was right, of course. I had been trying to purchase my family's approval using financial support as a bridge across the gulf their rejection had created. All I had accomplished was enabling their continued disrespect, while draining my own emotional resources. Meanwhile, my legal team worked with my family to implement the repayment agreements. My parents chose to sell their house, the home I grew up in, moving to a modest condominium that they could afford on their actual income. Thomas and Amanda downsized dramatically, pulling their sons from private school and selling their luxury cars. The process was painful for everyone but necessary. Each week, Sarah provided updates on the financial restructuring. Thomas had found a higher paying sales position and was making regular payments. My parents had liquidated investments and heirlooms to meet their obligations. The forgery charges remained unfiled, conditional, uncounted compliance with the repayment plan. Throughout this period, I focused on rebuilding our life without the toxic family connections that had drained us for so long. Lily and I established new traditions with our chosen family. Sunday dinners with Linda and her husband, weekend outings, with Emma's family holiday celebrations, with a growing circle of friends who valued us for who we were. Family is built, not just born, I explained to Lily. We get to create our circle of love and support. At NextGen Tech, I channeled my experience into new initiatives. We launched a scholarship program for single parents, pursuing technology careers, providing not just funding, but mentorship and flexible work opportunities. The program quickly became the company's most rewarding community outreach, with our first cohort of scholars already making significant contributions. 3 months after the confrontation, an unexpected letter arrived from my mother. Unlike the formal legal communications that had become our only contact, this was handwritten on simple stationery. Dear Cheryl, it began. There are no words sufficient to express the shame I feel for how we treated you and Lily. I have no right to ask forgiveness, but I need you to know that I understand now the depth of our failure as parents and grandparents. Your father is not ready to admit this yet, but I cannot continue without acknowledging the truth. You deserved better from us. Lily deserved better. If there is ever any possibility of a relationship in the future on any terms you set, I would be grateful for the chance with love and regret. Mom. The letter brought fresh tears, but also a glimmer of possibility, not for immediate reconciliation, but for eventual healing on new, healthier terms. I shared it with Dr. Marshall, who helped me craft a response that maintained boundaries while leaving the door slightly ajar. Thank you for your letter, I wrote back. I appreciate your acknowledgement of the past. Right now, Lily and I are building a positive life focused on our chosen family. I cannot offer immediate reconciliation, but I am open to small steps forward in the future if actions consistently match words. 6 months after the confrontation, we encountered Thomas at a school science fair. His son Daniel and Lily had both qualified for the regional competition, representing different schools. The meeting was awkward but civil. Thomas had lost weight and looked humbled. The flashy accessories and arrogant manner gone. Your project looks impressive, he said to Lily, making a genuine effort to connect with his niece perhaps for the first time. Thank you, Uncle Thomas, she replied cautiously. Good luck to Daniel, too. It was a tiny moment, but significant. No pretense, no hidden agenda, just simple human acknowledgement. As the 1-year anniversary of the confrontation approached, I reflected on everything that had changed. The legal matters were proceeding as agreed. My parents were adapting to their new circumstances with growing acceptance. Thomas was making consistent payments and had reached out several times about the possibility of supervised visits between cousins. Most importantly, Lily was thriving. Without the undercurrent of rejection from her grandparents, she had blossomed even further, excelling in school and developing deeper friendships. She spoke more confidently and carried herself with greater assurance, no longer worried about measuring up to grandparents who found her lacking. The financial aspect, which had seemed so critical during the confrontation, had faded in importance. The money had never been the real issue. It was the deception, the disrespect, and the fundamental denial of our worth as people that had necessitated the rupture. As I built a new life centered on authentic relationships and mutual respect, I found peace in an unexpected place. Gratitude for the painful lessons my parents had taught me through negative example what family should not be. That knowledge allowed me to create something better for Lily. A home where she was valued unconditionally, where her achievements were celebrated without caveats, where love was not transactional. The ultimate irony was that in trying to mold me into their vision of success, my parents had given me the determination to forge my own path. Their rejection had forced me to find strength I never knew I possessed. Their conditional love had taught me the vital importance of loving unconditionally. Today I lead a company valued at over $1 billion. I have created opportunities for other single parents facing the same stigma I once did. I have built a chosen family who celebrate Lily and me for exactly who we are. The journey from family disgrace to self-acceptance was long and painful but necessary. Sometimes the family that should support you cannot or will not. When that happens, the greatest act of courage is not continuing to seek their approval, but creating a life rich with people who truly see your worth. True family, I learned, is not defined by blood or obligation. It is created through respect, honesty, and mutual support. It grows in the fertile soil of acceptance, not the barren ground of judgment. Most importantly, it recognizes that love should never come with conditions or price tags. If you have ever struggled with family who could not see your worth, remember that you have the power to build something better. You can create connections based on genuine appreciation rather than obligation. You can establish boundaries that protect your dignity. You can find people who celebrate rather than tolerate you. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took advantage of your generosity? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. How did you find the strength to establish boundaries? Like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and renewal and share with someone who might need to hear that they deserve respect without having to earn it. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your worth is not determined by those who cannot see it.